Well, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever, wherever you are. My name is Pat Esgate. I am the creator and lead organizer of Ann Lister Birthday Week, the greatest event that is soon to come, hopefully, July 11th through the 18th in Halifax next summer. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I have had the great good fortune over the extended pandemic to be able to talk to a lot of different people that are involved both in Gentleman Jack as well as the history of Ann Lister. And today I'm very excited because we have with us Phil Collinson, the producer of Gentleman Jack for both season 1 and 2. So let's get started. Hey, Phil.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are things over in England today? Good.
Yeah, a bit rainy. We're coming into autumn here now, so
yeah,
it's cold and wet.
Yeah,
yeah, not great. But
lovely filming weather it must
lovely
be. Right?
Filming weather, I know, and it's hard because the first season we shot in this extraordinary heat wave, and we just had days and weeks and weeks and weeks of unbroken sunshine, and the Halifax and the Shibden Valley look like Tuscany, and it looks different this time. It's interesting. It's quite a different, obviously it's much winterier and wetter and
right.
Colder.
Right.
And it's brilliantly striking in its own way, but quite different feel for the second season.
Yeah, I was thinking about that it's I do know that we're going to be covering Christmas of 1834 in this because that came up earlier in another interview, and I guess the good thing about it is that you're actually filming kind of in the same season, at least of that part of the story. So,
yeah.
So.
We film right through until next spring, so we'll go through we'll go right through winter and out the other side actually on camera.
Right.
So you get to see a different view of the landscape of the valley, really, and the surroundings. I mean, it's just as beautiful, and I mean, I think the landscape is a huge star of the show, actually. And
absolutely, yeah.
And so it's going to be really interesting to see a different side to that, and I'm going to be interested to see what people think.
Yeah. So let's start out with a little bit of background about you, Phil. You started out as an actor, correct?
I did, indeed. I did. I went to drama school for 3 years, and then I spent about just a bit longer than 3 years treading the boards. So in repertory theatre and some little bits of television, more theatre than television, and I mean, I thought, that was my life. That was my destiny, really. That's all I wanted to do, and I was certainly obsessed with it when I was at drama school. I did an amazing time at drama school. They're just the best years of your life, really.
Right.
And with a brilliant bunch of people. And I come from a very working class family. From sort of ancestors of sort of tailors and sort of colliers and kind of working people, and I'm the first person really in my family to have anything to do with the arts.
Wow.
So that was I just felt so lucky and privileged to be at that school and to be spending days sort of looking at texts of plays and it was a course that encouraged you to write and devise stuff yourself as well. So doing that. And then I spent about 3 years as an actor. But I loved it, but I realized quite quickly that I wasn't good enough to do it as a career, I think. I'm being nice to myself there.
Well, you did share a great story with me that ties in a little bit of something we're going to talk about later on. that Russell T Davies actually wrote the part of Alexander in the British version of Queer as Folk for you, correct?
Well, yes. We were friends, and we were friends, and one of the things that bound us as friends, actually, we were both Doctor Who nuts. And obviously this is 20 years before we worked together on bringing the show back. But we used, so, you know, sometimes we'd have dinner and our boyfriends would then have to suffer us watching an episode of Doctor Who together after dinner. So, and he, one day he said to me, listen, I'm writing this show and there's this part I think you would be brilliant for. You know, and he kind of talked a little bit about him. And he said, but, you know, you're going to have to come and meet the director. But you know, I've written it for you. I think you'd be amazing. So off I went for this interview. And sitting next to me at the interview, waiting to go in, was this extraordinary character called Anthony Cotton. And I'd never quite met anyone as camp and as bonkers as he was that day. And talking non-stop, you know, 19 to the dozen. And I went in and I did my interview, and I kind of, I don't know, you get the sense. I mean, I think. And I came out, and anyway, I didn't get the part, and Anthony did.
Right.
And Paul Russell then had to ring me and say, listen, that part I wrote for you, we've given it to someone else. And that was kind of coinciding with me realizing that it wasn't I wasn't good enough. I mean, you know, you often hear, I would hear from actor friends, oh, you know, if only I could get my break, if only I could get my chance. And I had been really lucky in so much as I had been seen for a lot of big parts. I'd often get down to the last 2 or 3, so I might go back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. And
I never get the part. And you know, that happens to you 6 or 10 times and you kind of get the message, I think.
You know, by the 20th time, you're
if I had been, and genuinely, if I had been good enough, I would have got those parts. And it wasn't for want of trying, and it wasn't for want of love of the theatre. I mean, and I still love the theatre. I'm just so happy when I'm sitting in a theatre watching a play, and you know, and I love television drama as well. I'm not particularly a film buff. I mean, I like going to the pictures, but more for the ice cream and the popcorn, really, and the experience of it. I'm a real telly boy. I love my telly, and I love my theatre. So,
well, you have great telly over there, I have to say. So, you know, we've been
so bad either.
one of the great things, if you can say, one of the great things about the pandemic is certainly I'm consuming a lot more content than I have in my life.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And a lot of it has been some really great British shows, you know, having been introduced to Sally through Gentleman Jack. I've been through that canon. And which leads me to the next question. You met Sally as you were moving forward into not being an actor, you wound up doing script editing, or was it writing for Coronation Street?
No, so I was script editing. My first job in television was a script editor's job on a show called Spring Hill, and it was a little show. We made 26 half hours for Sky, which is at that time was in its infancy. Sky's a cable channel, a satellite channel as it was then. So it was a tiny, minuscule little budget, and I think it was the first thing, or one of the first things, that Sally did after finishing Coronation Street. It came out of the same department at Granada Television as Coronation Street. It was called the Drama Serials Department, and they were making sort of the brilliant lady called Carolyn Reynolds running that department, and she sort of just saw opportunities because of Coronation Street. For people who don't know, in America is a big show here, big soap opera, but it's not soap opera in the way America has soap opera. Here, soap operas are big, important shows. They're the linchpin of the schedule. and the Coronation Street and was at the height of its popularity then. And Sally had been one of the core writers on that show, and then had sort of moved on, and this was one of the first shows she did. So I came in as this brand new green script editor who'd never really done television script editing before, and Sally was on the team. Paul Abbott, who wrote Shameless, was on the team, and Russell T Davies was on the team.
Wow.
You know, all people at the beginning of their writing career, actually, along with myself, this green little script editor. And that's when I first met Sally. And she wrote 2 episodes of that show. And they were brilliant, and of course, as a young kind of script editor, to get to work and learn from these amazing people, gosh, I was lucky. I was astonishingly lucky.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we first met.
So when how did you get involved with Gentleman Jack then? When did the call come? What did she ask of you? Or was that kind of an ongoing conversation? Because I do know that Sally had been talking about this for quite a while.
Yeah, I first read it probably about 18 months before I came on board to produce it. And I went to meet her, and we had a conversation about it. I just thought it was a wonderful, beautiful script. We had a conversation, and then it all sort of went quiet. And I'm not actually sure what happened. I think maybe she was right. Maybe she went and wrote Happy Valley. I can't remember. And then I just suddenly got a telephone call. Would I go and see Sally and Faith Penhill, which I went off to see them, and. I think the show had changed names, because I think at one point it was called Shibden Hall when I first read it. And I think it changed name to Gentleman Jack. And then, very quickly then, I think that was sort of in the September, and then I joined the show in the January.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was quite quick from then, yeah.
So, Phil, so when you joined the show, and this is kind of digging a little bit into the role of producer. Do they hire you first, and then the rest of the team comes together, or do you kind of come in and they've already talked about, say, like Anna Pritchard and et cetera?
No. So I usually come in very early. I'm usually one of the first people on board. Okay. It's a great job producing, because you're usually one of the first people on board and you're the last to leave. You don't finish the job until the final episode in all its glory is delivered to the network, finished. There you go, ready to show. So it's a great, in the case of Gentleman Jack, it's a sort of 18-month contract, really, pretty much. Okay. And so I came on board, and then obviously in the case of Gentleman Jack, we knew Sally was going to be the lead director and showrunner, but often I'll come on board before the director, so I will help the writer, showrunner, and the execs to find, I'll be in on the interviews with the directors, and we'll find who the directors are for the show. In this case, obviously Sally was on board, and so I just helped to put the team together. Really, there were certain people Sally had worked with before, and then other people like Anna, for example, who she hadn't. And so we met quite a number of production designers, and they kind of came in and had a chat with us, and then we were lucky enough on the day that Anna walked into the room, because she really is amazing, and she's
something. Yeah.
Oh, she's incredible, and is in many ways our secret weapon on Gentleman Jack, because she just makes it look so stunning and beautiful, so I will be on board really, really early.
Okay.
And then it's kind of like I'm kind of like the project manager essentially then, and then I help to find the crew and put the crew together. I sort of work with a fantastic line producer, Des Hughes, who I've worked with for many, many years. and he and I then will put the budget together and work out, and then that kind of goes in, and we work out how much money we're going to get to make the show, and then director comes on board, and then someone kind of starts putting a schedule together, and it's kind of just like the layers of a cake really getting coming together. Across probably, in Gentleman Jack says it was like 4 or 5 months until we started photography, with different people joining on at different times.
So Phil, let me ask you a question, because I really don't know how this happens. You talked about delivering the series to the network. Are they seeing rushes as you're going along? And so they have a sense of where it's going and how it's going, et cetera.
So they see rushes every day. So the following morning, they'll see what we shot the previous day. And then every Friday night, they see an assembly. So they'll see, the editor will put the scenes together roughly. It won't be polished because the director hasn't had a chance to do that yet, but they'll see all the scenes we filmed that week cut together, so they'll really get a sense of how it's feeling and how it's coming together as we go along. And they can give notes sometimes, and all that, sort of shape it as we go along as well.
Right. So what was it like? What was their general sense as this was developing, as they were going through the assemblies, et cetera, et cetera? Were you getting the feeling from the network that they were excited about this?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it was an unusual process for me because I'd never worked with a writer-director before. So often a big part of my job while the shoot's happening is to be a sort of conduit between the director and the writer showrunner. So kind of trying to keep that flow going between the two of them and the conversation happening, so that what's happening on the floor, in front of the camera is really, in a way, it's my job to kind of make sure there are no surprises and a minimal amount of notes, to make sure the conversations have all been had, what color that hat's going to be, what color the wall's going to be, where we'll shoot it, what that looks like, what the room looks like, what the street's going to look like, how it's going to feel. All of that's a big part of my job, really, is kind of being that person. Now, in this case, for series 1, obviously, Sally had written it and was then bringing it to the screen. So in many ways, it was fantastic because I didn't have to be that kind of, that bit of the job was kind of there. And so then I could really devote a lot more time to just making sure the show ran as smoothly as it possibly could. And so sorry I started talking about that, because I think then what that also meant was the show that they were seeing in the rushes was really the show Sally wanted them to see.
Yes, absolutely.
And had that sort of the authenticity of her authorial voice and vision was there for everybody, and so there were no surprises. Other than it was so good. I mean, it was so rich and really beautiful. So yeah, it was really wonderful to be to sort of be that confident that early on that you were making something special.
Yeah, and when did you first find out that you had been greenlit for season 2?
Before we finished season 1, I think. Before we finished the post on season 1. So I think we were still finishing the post on the 8th episode when the first one went out. From what I remember, it was pretty fast anyway. It was pretty fast, and because the audience response was quite fast and instant. It really did seem to be a show people talked about from the word go, and there was an awful lot of press interest in it as well. So I think it was ticking a lot of boxes for both of our partners, actually.
Right. So you're leading me into some areas that I want to touch on, and I'm going to jump to a couple of those right now. Now this year, Sally is not directing.
She's not, no.
And does that, I'm really curious as to what impact that has on the series, on the set, the kind of the relationship between the team, both the actors and the crew. Is it different not having Sally there as a director, or is it, how does that feel?
Well, I mean, it is different. But at the same time, we're 2 weeks in now, and it absolutely feels like the same show.
Oh,
and
good.
the same kind of experience. We've got a really amazing director called Ed Hall, and he rehearsed with the actors, and and Sally was there at the rehearsal process as well. So the first 3 scripts are the ones he's directing in this first instance, and they are. I mean, he's doing a terrific job. He and Sally are are talking a lot. Sally watches rushes every day. We're actually testing out this new system called Q-Take, which is a stream that Sally can watch, so she can watch rehearsal in the morning before we start shooting, and she'll do that. She'll give us some notes. So it's really got, touch wood, where's some wood? It's going well so far, so good, really.
Good. So that's all done sort of as just via the internet, obviously, in terms of her being able to see it, et cetera. Yeah. Wow, fascinating.
Yeah, it's a new experience.
Yeah. Just going back briefly to season 1, what would you say was your biggest challenge during season 1?
Well, someone knocking on my door now. The problem with this period, really, I mean, it's a wonderful period, but it's also a challenge in the period is that there's not a lot of that architecture left. So you can't just go outside with a camera, turn up and shoot. So, the production design on this show is really big, is really enormous. So I would say that probably, I would say that is the biggest challenge. Oh, there's someone, do you mind? I'm really sorry to do this, but no, I'm going to have to go answer the door.
I'm just going to sit here and vamp for a few minutes. I mean, I'm really interested in what he has to say, and I hope you are too. We're going to cover a lot more about season 2. We just wanted to get in a little background.
Really sorry, I'm back.
No, excellent. Okay.
So yeah, so I would say that, I would say that's the biggest challenge. Is not just being able to turn up. So an enormous amount of art direction and
CGI, right?
Yeah, CGI that helps us, and lots of sort of modern bits of modern life that have to be painted out.
Yeah.
So I would say that really.
I'd have to make a gigantic assumption here that even all that was not as big as the challenges that you've faced getting to season 2, what with COVID coming in.
Yeah. Well, we were due to start filming a lot earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So we postponed twice really,
right.
And it's I've been making television a long time, and it's the most challenging thing I've done, I think, coming back in and to starting to film. We've had to sort of make ourselves sort of COVID secure, so it's masking and sanitizing and cleaning and just being just really being mindful of all of that,
right,
whilst making sure that the show feels exactly the same as it always did, so people are close to each other and family members hug each other and kiss each other, and people sit close to each other and have conversations. So all of that has been a huge challenge.
Wow.
Well, it's happening, and it looks gorgeous, and it feels absolutely like the same show. So, you know, there's a great sense of achievement actually from the whole crew, and also people had, you know, there were a lot of people who had been not working for a long time, and there was a period at the early part of the year where I think all of us in the television industry kind of thought, we're just never going to be able to work. You know, we're going to be off work for an awfully long time, and it felt insurmountable actually. And it's not. So there's a lot of joy that's happening. There's a lot of, you know, the crew's great. Everybody's working really well and really hard, and we've just adapted. You know, as we do. Human beings are wonderful, aren't we? We adapt.
We adapt, exactly. We make it through, and
exactly.
So it's are you in a bubble at all, or do people go home on the weekend? Because I know you don't work on the weekends. Do you?
Yeah, we go home. We're doing a lot of testing, so everybody the whole crew really is pretty much tested twice a week, and everybody on camera is tested twice a week. You know, we're social distancing wherever possibly we can. And only, you know, there's only a real small core of people who are anywhere near the set itself, and therefore the actors. So it's challenging, but we go home, as we know we go home. I mean, you know, we're obviously, there's quite strict lockdowns at the moment here. There's a national lockdown at the moment, so nothing's open, and we're all, you know, we're not allowed to socialize. We're not allowed to meet anybody outside of our households, and it's just you know, reminding the crew and cast constantly that, you know, we owe it to each other to follow that guidance, and because that's going to be the thing that keeps the cameras turning and allows us to keep working and keep the place safe.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
It's critical.
So it's I mean, it's a completely new way of working, but it's working so far.
But it's working. So, which is the good news.
Yeah.
In terms of casting for this season, were the auditions done? Did they get a chance to do live auditions, or
no? So everything's been done. We've had actors read, and that's how we've done all the casting, sort of looking at them self-taping.
Right.
And scenes and things, and it's working well, and then obviously there's bigger names are being offered parts, and it's great coming into a second season because people know how great the show is and what they're doing, so you really aim high.
Can you tell us about any of the bigger people who have been offered parts, or is that a spoiler? And by the way, to the audience, we aren't going to be digging into spoilers. I know that there's a part of the audience that would prefer not to have them. And of course, there's always one that prefers to have them.
I mean, I hate spoilers.
Yeah. I want to see the show personally, but
I hate spoilers. No, I mean, it's pretty much all the returning cast that you know and love are coming back, and there's nobody not coming back, so it's kind of everybody that you know and love really this time.
And you have cast for Isabella Norcliffe now, right? For Tib?
Have we? I don't know if I'm allowed. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that.
You're allowed because Lookout Point put it on their Instagram.
Yes, we have. We have, and we actually did some filming at her house this week.
Langton Hall.
We went there. So again, one of those. I've never had this on a show before, but to be really in the room with the actors playing the characters who actually lived in that room, and where the scene that they are playing actually happened in that room is really, I mean, we were in we were in Anne Walker's house yesterday, and again, it's that same tingle that you get when you just think, gosh, this scene really happened in this room.
It's amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah,
and
I kind of think that jumps out of the screen at you. Actually, I think it gives the show such an authenticity.
Yes.
And you know, it sort of bleeds into it, I think. You know,
yeah.
It's wonderful.
And I think that it's, you know, I would concur with you on that, because, you know, what's come out of the Gentleman Jack Series 1 is certainly a huge international fandom.
Yeah.
But it's also kickstarted the research on Ann Lister.
Yes.
And Ann Walker.
Yeah.
We're almost daily, it seems like, discovering new things about both of those people.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and sort of taking down some old mythologies and finding out some really new, interesting bits and pieces about them. Yeah. Including, as you well know, the fact that we've now, and this is for the audience that doesn't know this, that one of Ann Walker's diaries has been located, and it happens to be for the period after they have their marriage commitment. So we're going to be talking to the In Search of Ann Walker people about that in the future. So just so you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, you know, I think the series arrived at a time when they, you know, with kind of Me Too and that whole kind of reevaluation that was going on about female history and identity, and I think it arrived at absolutely the right time.
Yeah.
And so many of those themes that were running through that first series, you know, just about how women have been treated historically. I mean, you know, Ann Lister is a you know, it's ridiculous that as you know, a gay Yorkshireman, I didn't know about Ann Lister.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we should have been taught about her in school. We shouldn't. Yeah. She's an absolute kind of cultural phenomenon, and she's getting the recognition that she should have always had. Really, I think in many ways, just a little bit too late. Well, not too late, because it's never too late, but a little bit later than it should have been.
Yeah, a little bit later, but actually, if you think about it this way, she's come out into the age of technology and the ability for people to learn about her almost firsthand now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, this leads me to something that you and I talked a little bit about in our pre-interview that I did want to chat a little bit about now. And that is, as a gay Yorkshireman, you're from Leeds, correct?
I am from Leeds, yeah.
You shared with me that one of the things that sort of took you towards acting, or at least towards that creative pursuit, was you were a big Doctor Who fan.
I was a huge Doctor Who fan.
Yeah.
I was a huge Doctor Who. I mean, you know, it was a big show here in this country. It started in 1960s, and I was born in 1970 when the show was at the height of its popularity. For people who don't know, it's about a guy who travels in time and space, an alien who travels in time and space and kind of fights monsters. And it's a sci-fi show, but it's sort of more than that. But yeah, that was my favorite show growing up, and I've sort of thought about it a lot. In you know, when I kind of came out, and then I went on to the show was cancelled at the end of the 80s, and then I was part of the team. I produced the first 5 years of its rebirth, and so I thought a lot about it, and a lot of television, and the television was a huge part of my life. You know, we loved the telly in my family. It was like there was myself and my brother and my mum and dad, and then the telly sort of in the corner was a friend and somewhere that, you know, we sat as a family and just watched stuff, devoured stuff. I loved stuff. I loved drama. You know, I've been a small boy. I think I told you I've really strong memories of Roots.
Right, which I was shocked by the
huge
way.
seminal stuff. But I, you know, I sat watching that on my dad's knee, and he talked to me about slavery and what the show was about and what it meant. And I can remember so vividly lots of parts of that. So I sort of brought up on television drama, really. But Doctor Who was a favourite, and you know, he's sort of asexual. Doctor Who, you know, it wasn't a show about him having romance, and in fact, romance and sexuality I had no part to play in that show. It never influenced him. He never did anything because he was in love with a woman. He never did anything. You know, there were never any of those. You know, what I used to hate, you know, like we'd watch, I don't know, Heart to Heart, and they were always kissing, or they'd be in the bath together, or and I used to go, oh God, you know, really in hindsight, it's because I was kind of, I don't know, I sort of knew that wasn't me. Right. I wasn't heterosexual, but all drama was heterosexual. There's hardly anything.
Right.
And yet I landed on this show that just didn't have any sexuality in it at all. And so it was brilliant for that. And it was just adventurous and brilliant and colourful and marvellous. And so, yeah, that I think is a big reason why I loved that show.
Right.
Because it helped me find a bit of identity somehow. In that I knew I wasn't that. I knew I wasn't Jonathan Hart sitting the other end of the bath to Stephanie Powers, and I couldn't have imagined anything worse, really.
Right. Yeah, me too, by the way, except it was. But speaking of that, and that's what, you know, that is one of the things that is so really marvelous about Gentleman Jack, about the show that you're producing, is that it has had that incredible impact really around the world for gay women.
Yeah, absolutely, for gay women, but I think for all women actually as well. I mean, and you know, not that I want to take anything away from gay women, because I think it's a long overdue that to have this amazing heroine and this person, and I really love. I love the idea that, you know, little girls can be really inspired by her, and you know, realize that this person, that actually, you know, there have been women like Anne Lister being tough and strong and feisty and right at the front for hundreds of years. Actually, we just haven't been telling their stories. You know, thousands of years, and we just haven't been telling their stories. And I know, you know, I'd love to think that there are more of these kind of shows out there. But yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled that a gay audience has responded so well to it.
Yeah,
it's my audience, you know.
Exactly, and mine as well. Although, as I was speaking with somebody connected with the show not too long ago, that as much as I love the fact that it has gay characters, I want everyone to see it. I don't want it to be just a gay show, because I want people to see, because I really feel like for the first time, what Gentleman Jack has offered us for the first time is a program about, as you put it yourself, you meet these two characters, you know right from the beginning that they should fall in love, and they do fall in love. Yeah. And you get to see the outcome of that. And there's never any question about whether or not they, you know, it's not, nobody says, well, you can't do that because you're, you know, because.
Absolutely. Whatever. That's the biggest thrill about the show for me. I mean, you know, I went for watching the end of episode 6 for the first time, you know, that whole last 10 minutes of that episode, you know, from the bed scene to the scene with the Bible at the window, and then outside, and that great crane shot and the swelling music, and I just broke my heart watching that. first time.
Yeah.
And I love that it can do that. I love that these two characters can do that and did that for such a big audience. You know, my mum was living in an elderly retirement complex, and you know, all her friends there were saying to me, as they all knew I was making this show, and they're asking me, and I was saying it's a period drama, and oh, is it like Downton Abbey? Oh, well, it's kind of, but it's not. It's very different to that. And I'm kind of thinking, oh, here we go. What are they all these old ladies going to think? And they loved it.
Yeah.
And I was saying to one of them, you didn't mind what? And you didn't mind the sort of two women kissing and all of that? And she said, I know. I just thought they were gorgeous together. And so and this was sort of very elderly, sort of quite, you know, people that I thought, oh, well, that might not go down too well there. But it did. I think there's something about the purity of that love and on all the obstacles they had to overcome to just be able to, you know, in private, by the way, they're still not able to go out in the world and kind of tell people what's going on, but all the obstacles they had to overcome just in private to sit in that church and to go through that ceremony that only they knew about. I mean, I think you know, I think it's beautiful. And I'm so thrilled that a big audience have responded to it and love it.
Well, and if I may say, you know, for me, I think that one of the things that sets it apart and that has been so brilliantly done is that, as we say, it wasn't shot for the male gaze. You know, typically when you see movies about lesbians, there's always about, you know, 1/3 of the time is taken up with sex. And it's usually about sex that somebody else is imagining that people are doing. And it kind of gets in the way of everything. You never get to really focus in on the emotion and the heart and the challenges and everything else that goes behind it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And these are two women who really, really love each other and made a pact and stayed together for a long, long time.
Yeah, for as long as they were able to.
Yeah, and you know, went through an awful lot to do that and to be able to be able to commit to each other. So I love them both. I think they are extraordinary characters, but made even more extraordinary because they really lived and they really did that. And I think that's right at the middle of everything Sally did. There's just this authenticity. And you know, obviously we're shooting it where these things really happened. But those, you know, I think those diaries are extraordinary.
Oh
and
my God,
it was an extraordinary life that she lived and was able to document. So I feel I feel privileged making it, but I think, you know, I think the audience feel privileged actually getting to see it. And realizing that this is a real treat, you know, and this is you know, we were taught in history about Samuel Pepys a lot when I was a kid, and I hope now people will look at Anne's diary as much, you know, obviously there's the whole romantic side, but also as a chronicle of life at that time and business and world. It was an extraordinary time in the history of our island, you know. The Industrial Revolution is just starting to get going, and you know, it's really fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see all that start to play out now.
Well, we're really everybody out here is really looking forward to seeing how you take that forward. And we're actually just moving into our time now for Q&A.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But before we go to that, Phil, I do want to say, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you and the entire team that's put Gentleman Jack together for one thing that you've actually touched on, which is, you know how important it is to see positive role models for gay people. And of course, you know, young feminists that really don't want to have a lot of shit thrown at them, you know, in the world. But let's stick on this for just one moment. You have, you've created something incredibly extraordinary. And as I've said to many of our guests, you've actually changed lives. If you look into some of the things that people are doing and even being just bold enough to come out to their parents to, you know, to get more confidence about going to interview for jobs. I mean, the impact of this show has been incredible. And
well, that's very kind of you to say, and it's thrilling to think that that's the case. And I'm part of an amazing team. And obviously we have Sally's brilliant scripts, and Lister's incredible diaries that are inspiring this. So you know, we are in the hands of really superb sort of, I want to say storytellers, because obviously that is Sally's strength. I think that's Anne's strength as well. I mean, she knew how to tell her own story.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's very kind of you to say, and I do feel that, and I feel that, and I take that responsibility really seriously as well. That you know, this is a show that can change lives, and it is a show that I hope can really inspire people.
Well, you're there. So we have, you're quite popular here. They're lining up like crazy with questions. So question number 1 is from Kirsten Rye. Is series 2 like series 1 an HBO BBC co-production?
Yes, it is. Yeah, exactly the same.
And will it again run at different times, you know, because HBO, we got to see it on HBO before you saw it on the BBC.
Yeah. I think that conversation is still happening. So I can't tell you. I think, that conversation is happening. We've only just started filming, so delivery of the show is quite a long way off. It's well into next year before we start delivering it.
That's interesting. You know, those are the little things that we don't really know about out here in consuming.
Well, we film right through until May, and then we'll only start seeing the early episodes that kind of spring next year, and the post rolls right on until sort of September, October time.
Oh wow! So it'll be next fall.
So you'll see it next fall, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that is good to know.
Yeah.
I personally was hoping that it was going to premiere at ALBW in July, but that's not going to happen.
No.
Okay, so this one is from Renora Simon. Would there ever be a release of the season 1 soundtrack / music by Murray Gold?
Oh my goodness, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard whether there will be or not, but at the moment, but I hope so, because I think Murray's music is a huge star of the show, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I've worked with Murray a lot. He scored all the Doctor Who's that I did. I've worked with him a good number of times now, and I just think he's the best and amazing, and just gives it such. Just manages to just walk that tightrope. He gives it such heart and soul, and when it needs it, helps it to be epic, and he knows how to score the humor. And it's just full of life, that music, isn't it? I'd love to hear the soundtrack, so I hope so.
And just so you know, that's not the first time that question has come up since I started doing these interviews. This is from John Watson. How would the pandemic affect any traveling scenes for series 2, whether local or international?
Well, we do have some scenes overseas this season. We're shooting them locally, and we're going to be leaning on our special effects house to help us. I don't want to tell you what they are, but they're pretty dramatic and definitely beautiful. But traveling's out the question for us. We have special dispensation to film, but not to travel. So so we're going to be using. You will, but you won't. When the show's finished, it will feel like we've been to these places.
Okay. Well, in seasons 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through 12, you'll have more opportunities.
We'll be back. We'll be back.
Yeah.
We'll be back on the plane.
Okay. So has the delay in filming meant that any of the storylines have had to change to suit the weather?
No, absolutely not. No. Where Sally sort of delivered the episodes as she was writing them sequentially through the year, and no, they haven't changed. We're kind of going with the weather we've got. I'm not pulling leaves off trees or sticking them on or spraying things green. So no, we haven't. We're not changing anything.
All right. And then this is from Patricia Book. Are you still using Ida O'Brien to help guide intimate scenes?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
We are. Interesting. Okay, great.
Really important, actually. And I loved, Ita, the first time, Ita is the first time I've worked with an intimacy coordinator. I've had lots of sex scenes in lots of shows that I've done, and not used to, and not used an intimacy coordinator. It's quite a new thing, but I'm horrified now to think that we didn't use one. I think Ita's work is extraordinary and really valuable, and just the idea that we treat the filming of intimate content now with the same sort of care and attention as we do a big stunt, because if it's not done properly, it does have it can damage people. The idea that they're allowing themselves to be exposed so intimately on camera is a big deal, and that we didn't really take seriously enough. So I'm really glad Ita's on board, and yes, she's back again.
Well, I'm really glad about it, because I don't have to sit there thinking about Heart and Heart, not being interested in Robert Wagner over there. So, it's all good. Okay, this is from Julie Ham. How do you feel about the awards Gentleman Jack has received? Did you expect to receive different recognition than the show has done so far?
Oh, it's thrilling. I mean, we won the Royal Television Society Best Drama, which is a brilliantly prestigious, beautifully prestigious award. And obviously we were shortlisted for the BAFTA, one of four. And when I think now, I mean, there's so much wonderful content out there now. Just so much wonderful content, all made with such skill and care. And so for us to be recognized is thrilling. It's really wonderful, and it's a huge pat on the back for everybody.
Yeah, and I will absolutely underscore that for you when we were talking about earlier about the gigantic tsunami of content that's coming at our faces constantly now.
Yeah.
That for the recognition that the show has continued to get is quite something. Although I am hoping for a better turnout over here in the States for season 2, but you won't have Game of Thrones in the way anymore. Now you'll only have to deal with Succession.
Succession.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to come back. They got cut down right in the middle of a season.
They did. I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. I think they had to. I think they had to cut an episode short or something. I think.
Yeah. I'm hoping we'll see that one. But and then this last one is from Renora Simon and Sifra Verheiden.
Wow.
How much are
names today?
Yes. Well, I'm telling you, this audience is all around the world. I'm not kidding you. This ALBW live audience, you're going to be seen in India. You're being seen in Australia. You're all over Europe. It's amazing, and of course the States. But yeah, and we're back to planet Earth now, thank God. Okay, this is from Renora Simon, Sifra Verheiden. How much are directors free to deviate from the script? Do the directors check with Sally on how the stories are presented, given the potential impact of shot selection, staging, etc., on storytelling?
Yeah, the script is really sacred. Actually, Sally's works really hard, and every single word she puts on the page is there for a reason.
Oh yeah.
It's really thought about and crafted, and so we treat the script really faithfully and sacredly and carefully. Rehearsal happens. Sally's at rehearsal. She's great at sort of being on the other end of a phone. So the actors talk to her a lot. The directors talk to her a lot. And there's a real constant dialogue going backwards and forwards about how they see scenes and how they're going to translate them. Sally kind of talks a lot. So there's a lot of toing and froing, a lot of but she's very involved. I mean, she's really involved in. But this is an absolute work of love for her.
Yeah.
She really loves this series, loves this story, and so we all feel a really real responsibility to do the best we can to just bring to the screen what she wants to see.
Yeah.
Now, that's where the show's authenticity comes from, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Saran has a producer credit now too. Is she exec producer now?
She's an exec producer this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So explain a little bit what that means for her, because she's actually giving more input on the show, or what does that exec producer bring to
the same as yeah. I mean, Saran's a really, really, really clever lady. You know, there's no accident that she makes the most phenomenal Ann Lister, actually, because there are she's a really brilliant and brilliant clever woman, and with many years of experience. So it's really about encouraging her investment in the part and in the show, I guess, and that means being that means her being part of the decisions that we're making, and seeing the episodes and how they're coming together and giving notes, and the same as any other producer. It's not a token title for Saran. I mean, she's right in there in the thick of it with us, making those decisions and making the show. And she's in filming 98% of the time, actually.
Right.
Maybe that's a bit more, maybe a little bit less than that, but she's in every day, and she has a phenomenal workload on this show, and he's right there in the middle of it. So she's sort of, to be absolutely honest, she was doing this on the first season. She just didn't have that credit, and I think we kind of all thought actually she should, because she is producing it the same as we all know. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. Both she and Sophie Rundle are just, they have great chemistry together. It's really quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing and real, and they both really put so much in to those parts. Yeah.
To that point, Sally has mentioned in conversation to me that, and she always says this about certain actors on this set, that they bring a lot to the role. This ties into that last question about following the script, et cetera. That there's a lot of input from both of them in how they see what's going on and what you might want to consider, that kind of thing. I just find it fascinating that it's not just people sitting there memorizing the script.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah. So, Phil, we are at our end, and I do want
to quickly.
I know, isn't that amazing?
I'm really sorry I had to go and answer the door. That's embarrassing.
Okay. Yeah, it's the first time that's happened. At least you came back, I
did come back. Yeah, I didn't run away. Oh,
but
that was lovely. I've loved it. Thank you, and thank you for the questions. They were great questions, and I've really, I've really enjoyed it.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask the audience to stick here for just another moment, as we always do. But Phil, now we're going to send you very unceremoniously back into your own life.
Thank you very much.
But thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's a real thrill.
Well, that was fun. Sally told me that Phil was fun, and she was right about that one. So I just wanted to, again, as always, thank the team back there behind the screen, Steph and Liv and Kat. And we have a really interesting lineup coming through the rest of winter and spring. Some things you're not going to want to miss. And we'll be telling you more about that soon. But part of it, one of the things that we're going to be doing very soon is we're going to be talking again to the In Search of Ann Walker people. They're going to tell us more about having found Ann Walker's journal and tell us more about what's in it. That's going to be coming up in December. So keep your eyes peeled for that, along with some other great surprises. So stick with me. Now, in the meantime, please be safe, be careful. Follow whatever protocols that your particular government is asking you to do. And if they're not asking you to wear a mask, ignore them and go get one, because it is the only way we're going to slow this down until the vaccine is out. We very much want to be able to see you in Halifax next year. So let's all do what we can to make that happen. So for Ann Lister Birthday Week, it's Pat Esgate signing off. And thanks so much. As always, we'll see you soon.